That game you can't do anymore?
No, because the whole point of the program is to optimize the level of challenge. You see, with effective training of the brain, there are two problems that you want to avoid at all cost. One is the problem of boredom. Mm-hmm. Things are too easy, not challenging enough, then you just leave it.
Yeah.
The other problem you want to avoid is frustration, because it's too difficult and you can't make it. You can't do it. There is just this narrow band of optimal level of challenge which requires some effort, and that is actually part of the success of training. You need some effort. You cannot do it easily. But with some effort, you are successful. And then the program learns about your effort and your success and your speed and adjusts the next exercise so that it would still be in that narrow, optimal range of challenge. This is really the most important aspect of the program, and that's why two people would not do the same exercises. They may start from the same point, but after a short while, everybody, we can have tens of thousands of users who train their brain, and at some point they are all doing different things, because the program is truly individualized.
I'm Mike Cuthbert in Washington. Our web address is radioprimetime.org. One of the best reasons for visiting that site is to hear broadcasts you may have missed and to see what you couldn't hear, like our in-studio interview with Grammy Award-winning songwriter Janice Ian, as well as a host of other multimedia specials. You can even get involved with the Prime Time Radio blog. You can comment there on a number of topics, or just email us your questions and comments at primetime@aarp.org. This is Prime Time Radio. Our guest is Dr. Shlomo Breznitz. As we've mentioned several times, he's a former academic, college professor, member of the Knesset. Now, the big question comes, let's say I'm 68 years old, and I feel some mental slowdown, which is part of aging, I suppose, and part of the fact that I've got lots to think about, so it takes me a little longer to process. I'm not necessarily speaking of me, of course.
Yes.
But I take the MindFit program. And at the same time, I'm working on a novel, let's say, or a short story.
Yes.
Is it to be expected, or is it to be predicted, that work in MindFit and getting my mind active in that environment will apply when I go to the novel? That I may be more perceptive, or I may be writing more fluently, or anything else?
The users who write us, and many of them write to us their stories and their impressions, claim that yes, that in fact it carries over. And the reason, I believe, is that we are training the most rudimentary, the most basic element of cognition, which is issues of attention, perception, and short-term memory. And there is nothing that our brain does that is not composed of these elements. Even the higher level of cognition, and you certainly mentioned one of them, like going to a story, either reading or writing even, right? A story. It is all based on attentional issues, perception, and short-term memory. Without these three, nothing happens. So if you train and make some advances in those elements, it affects everything. Let me give you a very simple example. Let's say short-term memory. It has been argued in psychological literature for years and years that the number of different items that people can store in short-term memory is 7 plus minus 2, between 5 and 9. And then you count more, and new information comes in. It removes the previous one. Let's assume, and we have some clear evidence of that after training with the program, your short-term memory expands to 9.
Plus or minus 2.
Plus and minus 2, to 9. Just two items more. the impact on everyday life can be unbelievable. I'm just thinking about just simple things like people making introductions, remembering names, doing, several things at the same time, or just taking a phone number. Somebody calls you and wants to give you a phone number, and you tell him, no, I can't now, I need paper and pencil, right?
Right.
Otherwise you can't. Well, that is not necessarily the case, but we have become very lazy. Our brains are using all kinds of devices to get around this little effort.
Do you know that the first warning about that was given by Socrates? He said, if you learn to read and write, you will forget your memory, because we are an oral culture. Homer was an oral poet. We remembered all our stories not by reading them, but by telling them. He was right. Human memory did decline because we could read and write.
That is true.
You're trying to reverse the trend.
Well, one hopes.
How can our listeners get a test version of Cognifit, or the full boat, if you will? Is it available yet?
Yes, it is available, but it will be, now it's available in the CD.
Mm-hmm.
But towards, I would say, end of November, we will launch in this country a special MindFit program online, so that then you don't need, to go back to your own computer, wherever you are. If you have access to internet, you just put in the code number, and you can go from the point where you last trained.
Sounds perfect. You're away at the hotel, go to the weight room, and then go up to your room and go to the MindFit.
Absolutely. And since you mentioned it, I am venturing a prediction. You see, today, if you go to a health club, and people spend a lot of time and resources and money to go to a health club, you train almost all the parts of your body, with the exception of the most important one,
right,
which you leave aside. Now, I'm venturing a guess that 5-10 years from now, every single significant health club will have a computer room, and in addition to lifting, and developing your biceps, you will also invest some effort in your brain.
Cognifit is the generic URL, right? Cognifit.
Yes.
That's COGNIFIT.com. It is COM, right?
Yes.
Yes. Our guest has been Dr. Shlomo Breznitz. He's the former president of the University of Haifa, professor of psychology, former member of the Knesset, founder of Cognifit, an online and now CD available resource to keep your brain in shape. Our plan was to talk with Dr. Breznitz for about a half an hour. We blew that plan out relatively early because you're such a fascinating guest, and thank you for being so.
Thank you, and I appreciate your questions and the discussion. I have learned something, too.
Thank you at home for joining us on Prime Time Radio. We invite you to call our toll-free number with comments on our programs. The number is 1-800-424-9343. We're online at radioprimetime.org with information about our guests and an archive of previous broadcasts. Primetime Radio is a production of AARP. Our producer is Janelle Haskell, associate producer Angel Todd. Our engineer is Ben Pizzuto. I'm Mike Cuthbert in Washington.